So welcome back to Weekly iTibytes. Today I am with my friend Krzysztof.
Hello everyone.
Krzysztof is, let's say, not our typical programmer, not the typical person in IT. And I would like that he introduces himself and tells you more about who he is.
Thank you, Federico, for this introduction. Simply, I am an iOS developer and I work as a freelancer. So this is, I guess, why Federico said that I'm not that ordinary person in IT. What would you like to know?
Well, you can tell us more about this decision of become a freelancer. Because most of people who are in IT, they work for corporations or for startups or anything. But why did you decide to be a freelancer?
I used to work. I used to work in corporation, but I must admit that I guess I didn't understand organization and how it all works. And sometimes for me it was strange, like very strange situations happened that I didn't agree with. And I wanted to have more freedom and more flexibility, I guess, because I am also a contrarian, so whenever I think something is not logical, I would like to introduce some changes, maybe do something differently, find other way to do it. And this was not always possible, so that's why I decided to leave the corporation, to become a freelancer and have more impact on my work.
That's interesting. How long have you been in the freelancer world?
About 3 years now.
Wow, this is a different change that not many people have the courage to try. But why did you decide specifically to go to the iOS side? Because let's be honest, Android is like 70 or 80% of the market. And yes, iOS is important. However, why did you decide to invest your energy and effort there and not in Android?
Okay, so I made this decision about 8 years ago, and back then it was a little bit different. iOS were more popular, I guess, more advanced, and I started learning iOS when iPad was introduced to the market. So I bought it, I liked it, I decided to create some apps for it, and back at the time I had a position in a corporation, but after hours I was learning iOS, and that's how it started.
As we know, iOS is constantly evolving, and now we have some changes with iPadOS. We have new evolutions. What do you think about the changes in iOS all over these years?
I have good feelings about some changes, but also not so good about the other changes. The thing that I like the most is introduction of Swift. I think that this language changed the whole game for iOS programmers in a very good way. But actually I think that over the last few years the quality of Apple software is decreasing. The iOS system has more and more bugs, like not very big bugs, but rather glitches. You know, it used to be pixel perfect. Now it's not. But this is bad news for users. For programmers, I think there are more good news because of the Swift language and also many other changes in developer tools in general.
Personally, I've been developing some kind of apps for Android. However, Android tend to be more open to the people. And most of my friends who have developed iOS applications, they have faced difficult challenges to upload an app to the App Store. I remember that a friend chose even a white color that was patented by Apple, and he needed to spend at least 3 months that his application was approved in the App Store. What is your experience with that? And maybe any topic that you can advise to the people to design their own applications?
Sure. So first and most important tip I would say is to make sure that you are following Apple guidelines about how the application should look like, how it should perform, and also what steps should you take in order to submit it to the App Store. It's all described very well in Apple documentation, so this is your first source. And you said about waiting 3 months for app approval. I guess in the past it used to be that when you, after every submit, you had to wait about a week for review of your app. So if you had to submit your app multiple times because of some mistakes, then it should take very long time. Right now it's more like 2 days that you have to wait, so the iterations are a lot shorter. But still you have to be aware of some, like you said, color usage, even some very, very simple things can get your app rejected. A different, slightly difference in icon, for example, how it looks on the App Store and how then it looks on device. If it's slightly different, it can get your app rejected. So you should strictly follow guidelines that are available on Apple website.
As we can see, following guidelines is something useful and important. Not many people follow them, and this is why I guess when you develop apps for different devices, you experience those changes. Now, would you continue these trends of developing your apps, and you're continuously developing as a freelancer? What is the best experience that you have developing apps, and why do you think it's great to be an Apple, and let's say not an Apple, but let's say an app developer? What is the best part of it?
So I can say about iOS development, I think the best part is that you have only few devices that you need to test your app for. With Android, I guess it's a lot more complicated, but it's quite a strict process for iOS. It makes your life a lot easier. On the other hand, as you mentioned, Apple is more strict about your apps, so it's easier to get rejected. But I still believe that I prefer, maybe this way, I prefer to create iOS apps, and I will continue to do so.
And what is your expectation for the future, Krzysztof? Because we know that new technologies are coming, and I remember that there was an introduction of an augmented reality framework from Apple. At this, it was the last year or 2 years ago. What are your expectations about the future with the new technologies that are coming to the apps, especially this one about augmented reality, or something that you know that we are not aware of them?
I didn't have too much experience with augmented reality. I don't use it also as well. So I don't know what to tell you about predictions. I think the technology will be developed and will be getting better and better over time. So at some point, probably I will have to focus on this. But this moment didn't come for me yet.
Good. And how do you see the changes in the market? Do you think that new apps are going to come? How do you feel this world is changing with the apps in our lives?
I don't know really. Like I don't know. I don't put my thoughts on this. it's hard. It's hard to predict because, as I said, I think that over last years, Apple software quality of its software is decreasing. I don't know. Maybe if this trend continues, like Apple will not be a major player in app market in few years. Maybe even something like this. Yeah, but we will see. I'm not sure.
And what is one advice or one thing that you would like to give to the people that are watching this video? Something to close your thoughts?
About app development?
App development or something about yourself, something that you would like that people consider when they start to get into this game.
Okay. I would say probably it is hard for you to decide if you want to go for iOS or Android, or maybe both. But maybe both is the best solution, because there are tools that allow you to create apps simultaneously for both platforms. And if you are new, especially if you are new, if you have to learn all this stuff, maybe it's better to learn universal stuff. And it's usually also based on some web frameworks. And maybe there are more tutorials about this stuff, JavaScript in general. So maybe this is the way to go. I don't know, because if you want to create native apps in Swift, for example, I think there is a lot more to learn than if you just want to create universal apps using some web-based frameworks.
Well, and that's all for today. Thank you very much for everything, and thank you, Krzysztof, for your thoughts.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you, everyone.